why I present that is when we talk ethics, when we hear that word, it's politically charged, right? It is a term that is politically adjacent, and as a result, I got to start playing the landmine game of, what can I say, what should I say, but why I present that is, again, we're going through something right now, just out there in the world, and what that did to me, right, specifically, is I essentially decided I needed to rewrite these lectures. The reason why is, again, we'll see it in the next slide. What I'm kind of looking at is no longer your ethical conversations here in the now. Why? Because many of you have already got those set in stone. I know, I'll just go to the next slide, right? For the disclaimer, right? I know that specifically, right, when I was in your shoes, when I was a student and I was in my class and the professor started to talk something about politics, I just hated it, right? Why? Because, one, I don't agree with what they say, or two, I do agree with what they say. I don't want it in what I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn the math. I want y'all to learn the math, right? But that's where, as we, start to unpack the word AI, right, and a lot of the legal stuff that's starting to go through it. Well, legal means politics, right? It's what we as society have tried to decide on something. And so I'm just going to be, wholeheartedly honest. This is like half ramblings, just half I've been around this rock for 40 years, and I've seen stuff. I've seen what the world is like, and we may not have the same opinions on these things. Some of this is just science fiction at this moment. Some of it is reality, or you just haven't really sat down to think about it yet. We're all going to have a different opinion on this stuff, right? Because we're in a weird spot with like what AI, just in that frame sense, like AI art, is it okay or not? Right? It depends. And okay, well, now we've opened up a can of worms because we said the depends word, right? So it's sometimes okay, sometimes not okay. But what I'm kind of presenting to is, again, I'm old. I'm no longer a spring chicken, right? I got the grays starting to form. I remember when I was you, 20 years ago. Bright-faced, sunshiny, the world's my oyster. And you know what was happening 20 years ago? Facebook. Facebook was just getting popular. It was still an exclusive thing only for college students in 2005. And so think about where we've gone from. I was introduced to social media at your age. My parents were introduced to the internet at your age. My grandparents, my grandparents were introduced to the computer at your age. Right? Not the personal computer, but like the computer existed suddenly. And so what I'm looking at is the pattern, and specifically then going, what's going to happen when you get your grays? When you're starting to have your fun midlife crisis because you've got the job and the money and whatever else is going on in your life. And you're just like, huh? What? That's what the youths are talking about today? Right? What's a TikTok? I don't understand it. Y'all like it, right? And so, again, that last little part here is I am not your ethics class. You have that ethics class. I cannot talk about everything, everywhere, all in just not even 65 minutes. I got 65 minutes left to try and cover all of ethics, and I can't do that. So what I'm kind of presenting is these are sort of my bold claims of just things you're going to be needing to deal with in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I see it happening at my state, right? And in 20 years, I'm going to be 60. You know what that means? I'm not going to care anymore. I'm not. I'm going to be the old professor, and my reviews are going to just start tanking because I'm no longer relating to the next generation of y'all. So hot take number one, we got to get off the internet. Holy cow. I wasn't joking when I said, like, I got introduced to social media at your age. Like, I got hit by a truck when I was 15, right? Again, I've said that. If you haven't heard the story, I got hit by a truck. It's fine. I lived. But what did they do? I was in a wheelchair. They slapped me in front of AOL chat rooms. And I haven't left since. We are addicted to this thing. Why? Because we are social creatures. We are addicted to the 24/7 chat room. I know for a fact that if you get me drinking and you get me talking, I will stay up till 4 a.m. I'm not saying I get massively hammered and all that stuff. I want to share my ideas. I want to talk. I want to just socialize. And I know that that is also what happens on there. I may not talk, but I want to be a wallflower to every conversation. I want to know every little group. Just because one of the students in the morning class, they came in with a Critical Role t-shirt. Who's familiar with Critical Role, right? It's an online group that plays D&D. It's fine, okay, I'm not judging the D&D part. I played D&D in college. But what I would kind of point out is like, we flock to these different groups. We flock to these online communities for whatever reason, because it's the 24/7 chat of something we like. And that's where we start getting into the problems. You see, something we like is where you might remember problem set 5. You built recommendation engines, right? Think about all of the different recommendations that you built. Oh, the user liked a thing. Well, let me show you more of that thing that you liked. And we, as humans, this is where I call it an addiction. I admit I'm addicted. I am trying to break it. The light box is nice and pretty and shiny and shows me things I like. So what do? What is the problem with TikTok right now, or why TikTok's scaring everyone? It's because it's measuring your time on a thing. I scroll to a certain thing. It is now taking up the real estate on my vision and my attention. Let me measure the time delta from when you started it to when you ended it. And now I know how much time you like to look at D&D, right? Just for the Critical Role people. Here's what magic, here's what sports, here's soap cutting, right? Here's Play-Doh stuff. All that stuff, right? We are measuring how much time you watch it. Well, we don't want you to leave the platform, right? Netflix doesn't want you to go to Amazon Prime or YouTube or Hulu or Peacock or any of the other stuff. They want you on Netflix, right? So they can serve your ads, or you pay the subscription. And so specifically as we start to get into, this has been happening. We've been talking about this stuff, I won't say since Facebook came in, but we've really started to open up that sort of can of worms, especially since the last 2 elections. Everyone's arguing that it was fake. One side argued that 2016 was fake. One side argued that 2020 was fake. One side's argued that 2024 is fake, right? So we're constantly disagreeing with each other. But why I kind of mention these types of things is we've been having those conversations about the same time. As those elections are all fake, well, it's because the websites, it's because the recommendation engines, the algorithm that Facebook shows you, the algorithm that TikTok shows, the algorithm that YouTube shows. Remember, when I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it, I come up, I do this thing, I hit YouTube. Let me just make sure I don't see anything, right? It's the Daily Show, right? Fine. The Daily Show is the first thing they show me an ad first, but then that's the first thing I see. Well, again, if we're thinking about that, that means that this is something that I may click on. Again, there's how much. Just imagine how many terabytes of data, petabytes of data there are on the internet, how much of it is getting uploaded at this very moment. Something has to be the first thing you prompt me for. And the problem with that is, again, it has to be stuff that I like. Because if I don't like it, I leave. I change, I go somewhere else. And where that kind of comes in with specifically this whole testimony, if you've got a significant amount of time and you're curious about this stuff, I would strongly encourage it, because that was exactly what she's going into, right? The government's literally starting to complain and like, oh no, you're influencing these things. Tech for years, almost a decade or two, has been trying to tell people, no, it's what you want. You are watching these things. You're influencing yourself. Here's a good case in point. The algorithms are never going to show me underwater basket weaving. Why? Because underwater basket weaving is a joke class that we use to make fun of academia and how some of the courses are just weird. None of us care about underwater basket weaving. If you start to be like, oh yeah, I could be interested in it, you need to be interested in it for the rest of your life, right? Not just, oh, because you talked about it, so let me watch it one time, right? You want it to be always in your feed, right? Then it has to be recorded constantly. And so again, when we start looking at what we are clicking on, what we are engaging it with, what we are staring at the end of the day, we're monitoring that stuff, right? We're time on task. We know that it is our best indicator of tons of different things, and the algorithms, all of them, are now starting to use it to decide what next should you look at. Now, why does that matter, right? Oh, well, give me things I like. You call it doom scrolling now, so it's not things you like, it's things you stare at all the time. We had a term for this. Well, we still do have a term for it. When you're driving on the highway and there's a car crash, what do we call it? Rubbernecking. I gotta make sure I slow down. I'm doing all the things because I gotta see the accident. I gotta look at it for whatever reason because it changed the things. But why I mean that is what we're starting to discuss, and this is where I have nephews. I have a sister. She has kids. We're starting to make those conversations about the next generation. When should they get online? When should we put them online? Right? I know my nephews have a phone or a smartphone or a device that lets them play Subway Surfer, right? And I know that he's now gotten an Xbox and he's gotten the headsets. He's 8. You know what happens around the 12-year-old range when they're playing video games? If you haven't, they get vulgar real quick. And so specifically, we know that that's an addiction. We know that it impacts us negatively. We see it in children, that it is promoting poor sleeping habits. It's promoting, negative emotions. It's making us depressed. And why I kind of present that is, here's me telling you at 40, you just got out of high school. You're adults now, right? You leave all that petty high school shit behind. No, I hate to tell you, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Adults are just grown-up children. Everything that you learned in high school, well, that's because you were becoming adults in high school. And that means that all those personality traits that you're seeing, they stay. They stay in people. They shift, right, because of time and everything. But as that kind of happens, right, the same thing. We as humans or adults are being addicted to these things. What we are seeing in children is, again, we call it doom scrolling, right? We are constantly kind of presenting these things. And so this is starting to open up some of those ugly cans of worms as we just focus on children. So specifically, again, I fully admit it, I am trying my best to get off the internet addiction because I've been on it for years. I've been on it longer than y'all have been alive. 25 years if we think about. The truck was not when I started my internet addiction. It was when we got AOL monthly. My point being, so why I present this, why I spent all this time, because this is supposed to be ethics and AI. This thing is our occupational hazard. We are computer scientists. Our skill set and specialty is the computer, right? It is what we're great at. But the problem is, what happens when you get bored? Or you need to take a break because the problem solving is too complicated. Let me just check a thing. Let me just check Instagram. Let me just check Facebook. Let me just check my Discord. Let me just check Reddit. Y Combinator, Dig's now around again, right? We just do the check. And next thing you know, an hour's gone by. It's not a check anymore. It's let me just keep listening to the conversations. Let me schedule, right? I'm going to leave class, after around 4 o'clock today. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go home and I'm going to start watching my stories. You know what the stories are? It's a guy digging a hole in Australia. It's a guy who tries to do primitive technology and smelt iron, right? It's someone reviewing a video game. I gotta watch all my stories. They're all 10 minutes long. Next thing you know, it's 7:30, right? Oh, I know, right? A long time kind of stuff. I'm right? Again, that's how I became a doctor in artificial intelligence. But we got it. So specifically, this is where I highly encourage, if you do not have Flux on your machines, as a computer scientist, it is imperative. I strongly beg you all to go and download and install Flux. As I say on my slides, specifically on my home computer, I have it on its most extreme setting, cave painting. 9 p.m. rolls around, if I'm still on this thing, it goes to candlelight level. Right? It is so warm and orange lighted, it's not hurting my eyes. I'm giving y'all dark mode. Why? Y'all prefer it. Why? It's not hurting your eyes. And there's plenty of research that this group has looked at. We know these things. Blue light hurts our sleep cycle, right? There's countless articles on like how it suppresses our melatonin, it disrupts our circadian rhythm. I'm not going to go through all of those, but you can see, it changes, it hurts us more. We have more increased sensitivity at younger ages. You are still growing. I'm decaying. You start to decay around 25, right? You stop growing. I just like the decay phase. It is hurting us. It is hurting us that we are doing these things. So again, when you're on it at 1 a.m., because you got to get your code projects done, right? What kind of light are you shining on your eyes? I care about your eyes. That's why I gave you dark mode. Thank you for, right? But also, this is, a lot of the current stuff. I have only 2 things that are allowed to have notifications on my phone. I have it on silent. It's been on silent, not vibrate, silent. I've had it on silent for over a decade at this point. Right, because I got a really chatty family. I think there's probably 100 messages I haven't read yet. And I'd be hearing the ding. That'd be like this happening. I just want to stop it. Right? And so the same kind of thing. So only things that I have as a notification are the group message, because again, I got family, and my email, because I got work. But everything else, if YouTube, if I download an app on my phone and, 5 minutes later, it sends me any type of notification, no. I do all it. I disable that notification. I may even disable or, uninstall the app just because those are all distractions. I may even make a senior design team build me an app that just has me pop up on your phone telling you to get off the internet if you spend 10 minutes on it. I might do that. Why? Y'all gave me too much power, and I have way too much creativity. But again, okay, fine, right? Again, I got a limited amount of time, so I can't spend too much on that side of it. But why I present that is because we're constantly on it, and we all are approving the terms of service or the terms of use for these different applications, at which point they are doing data collection. Some of them ask if it's okay, and you can check the yes or no thing. Some of you have a Windows 11 box. Windows 11 Terms of Service has, you have agreed to let them take screenshots of your computer so that they may train the AI. The AI, right? Which AI? What kind of AI? But they're allowed to just take a screenshot of it. I don't like that, right? Again, this is where, as we start to kind of move into Martin Cooper, guy who invented the cell phones, right? He's even kind of expressing these kind of problems and saying, oh, you know, we don't really have any privacy anymore, right? Think about it. This thing's listening in all the time to everything I'm always talking about. I need to pick up bread because I would like to have some sandwiches later. We know what that hopefully should do, or we joke about, right? I should be getting some Wonder Bread advertisements soon. But also, GPS. Like that's also being emitted. So my location. So when you were asking about what is my likeness, right? Even my position on this planet, I consider my likeness. And all of those little details, those are being collected, harvested, studied, analyzed. And if someone is determined enough, they can find me. You know, that's you know, I've seen some of the stuff. Like I've seen the videos where someone figures out how tall you are from just like, oh, here's a door frame in the background, or here's, oh, you took a picture of a background, let me show you where you are out there on the world because I can use Google Maps to geolocate your picture. All that stuff starts to, like, we get a lot of data collection going on here. And so that's where I presented what I would call a fear term, you know, because as soon as I saw it, it hurt my soul. Bossware. It's essentially we're monitoring you while you work, right? Oh, you know, we're saying it's because of things like productivity, security, and, you know, trying to protect human error, right? And here's a nice little example of it in action, right? It's no longer just a security camera watching us, right, and recording kind of for, you know, posterity, but it's also doing real-time AI, right? We talked about image segmentation. And so suddenly, well, if that person's not moving, time on task is once again rearing its head. Look at that. I can monitor that person has sat there for 25 minutes. I now know how long my customers are sitting in a store, but I'm also looking at my employees. And you might notice that those are not time on tasks. Those are quantifiable metrics. Now, I know who the 10Xer is. That's the term, right? Oh, 10Xer just means that this person's doing 20 cups. I am going to show the video very briefly just because I need to show the human error side, right? No.
Is the best AI for work. And here's
why.
Yeah,
I'm sure you are.
Let me show you some of the mind-blowing things thousands.
That's very loud. So specifically there's Olga. Everyone look at Olga. Olga's only produced 3 cups of coffee. And if you were to dig a little deeper into who Olga is and where Olga is, maybe without all the drawing, what's Olga doing? Olga's playing on her cell phone. Oh, I know, right? So it's a little bit of like, oh, that's kind of, it's beneficial, but also creepy is how I'm going to frame it. It's neither a good thing or a bad thing, right? We've been monitored. I'm monitoring you, right? You consented to it. By the way, once again, if you wish to opt out of the thing, you can just ask me and opt out, and I won't study your dark-themed Moodle activity behaviors. But again, right, this is, we're using it as a fear term, but it's something that we've been doing for quite some time. But why I kind of present it is, again, it's neither a good thing or a bad thing. It's a thing that's happening. We are, again, consenting to increased surveillance, is what I'm getting at. So this is specifically now an application that's beyond just like, coffee shop. Law enforcement. Law enforcement has to carry around a little thingy. nowadays called a body cam. But the problem is, think about the concept of content now as a raw good. Again, we are computer scientists, but we are in engineering. What are the other engineering courses teaching? How to process raw goods. Content is a raw good. But the issue is, our content is not a physical thing, it's a temporal thing. Can you process and find and watch, you as a human, can you evaluate all the body camera footage of all the police officers every day? No. It's 8 hours of footage, or however long they have it on, right? It's hours of content. And that, from a human perspective, we are, again, temporal creatures. We exist only in time one direction. We cannot, speed up, slow down time or anything. And so what we are doing now, this is actually a company, I know Henderson County here in North Carolina has partnered with True LEO. That's the company, LEO, specifically to put AI summarization on body camera footage. So they're doing the audio transcriptions. They're doing summarizations of the body camera footage as well. Right? Again, that's do you like that? Do you not like that? I don't care part. That's what we're doing. And why I present that is here's my hot take of it all, right? Again, I don't care if you're happy that things are happening the way they are. You dislike how things are happening right now. I don't trust the government. I never have. I never will. Don't think I don't see what's going on, government. I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree to this. The pandemic happened. Let's allow people to remote in because they are worried about getting, the the virus that kills you and all that stuff. Now it's just part of things, right? Some of you slept in. Some of you, here's where, again, I'm going to defend it. I've had students that are parents. My class is in the middle of something when they need to be dealing with their child. I've had students that watch my lectures while they're waiting in line to pick up their kids at school. So again, I get it, right? It's a convenience thing. That's why I have lectures on YouTube. I understand that, sometimes you just can't make it to class for whatever reason. But notice what we're also starting to do. We're starting to just track what I'm showing you. We're also just starting to make sure, here's all the words that I'm talking about. Here's the transcription. There's the captions that are being automatically done. There's the video of me now, all that stuff. When it came to North Carolina State University and the UNC system, what types of data collection did you agree to, Panopto? Or vice versa. What did we agree to do with Panopto? Are you training? Or I don't know what I'm looking at, y'all. Is it training its AI on me? Well, I hope that it's getting all of me. Yeah, right? So again, it's useful. I get that, right? And I will defend it because it's a wonderful tool, and because I don't have to deal with y'all emailing me, hey, I missed class, what did I miss? Right? So I get it. It's a weird spot. It's not that it's good, it's bad, it's what it's doing, right? So that's where I want to at least shift because I got 40 more minutes. And so specifically, I almost was starting to talk about it, right? As I'm teaching here, these are my intellectual properties. This is my intellectual property. They have told me this course, what I do in this class, is considered my intellectual property. So again, as we start to look at that as okay, fine, right? But again, what's being trained on my intellectual property? Why am I not getting paid for my intellectual property? I want royalties. Dang it. But that's why, I want to go back in time actually for this now, right? Specifically, we got to go back to the 40s and technically 50s, right? So we have been experimenting on humans probably since the dawn of time, right? If you've dug into any of our like just harsh, cruel reality, right? The reason we know like women's health is because some slave owner just started killing his slaves to study them, right? Quaker oats, because again, all of this is new information. We are not, we are just still trying to figure out what we are, and technology has made it faster for us. But specifically, Quaker had partnered with MIT and Harvard to try and study how our bodies absorb nutrients. Fair, right? Assessment, because, here's a vitamin, here's a mineral, here's a drug. How does it, get into our system and all that stuff? We know it does a thing, but like how does it do a thing? And so they had partnered with these universities specifically to feed radioactive oatmeal to orphans. Specifically, again, because if you remember, like it's radioactive. If you've taken an X-ray, that lights up in the X-ray, right? It's bright. We could watch that and see how it happens. But then we learned something about radioactivity. You shouldn't eat radioactive stuff, right? It causes major problems. But why I kind of present that is that plus all of the human experimentation stuff that we started to see come out of World War II, as it was Japan, it was Germany, it was us. We all were doing it, right? That's really, it was not just the bad guys doing it. It was everybody was experimenting very, very harshly on people. And so that created or motivated us to create something called the Internal Review Board. And so IRB, even me, trying to study your preferences and color, themes, has to go through the IRB because technically I am experimenting on you, right? I'm not doing anything malicious or, that could impact you physically, but the brain's physical, right? So technically I'm, messing with your minds, maybe. I don't know. I'm just picking what you prefer. And so that is doing a thing. So that starts to kind of get into, we have been doing this for decades is the part I'm trying to present. And we use IRB to at least have someone else double check what you're doing to make sure that you're not doing anything that may cause a problem. But again, that's where we probably, I won't say probably, we thought that was okay, right? Quaker and MIT and Harvard, they all were like, well, we're feeding these children, you're monsters, like these are starving kids, we're feeding them. Yes, we're doing it with some other kind of ulterior motive, but we're doing it. So that opens up a can of worms as well. But why I kind of mean that is, as we are doing our stuff now with computer science, right? It may not be a physical thing, and that's again, radioactivity is dangerous to the body. What's dangerous to the mind, right? We don't know. We are kind of just starting to test these things. And again, this is now, at least to briefly touch on it, this is where we start on the present day, get into something known as the vulnerable populations. A vulnerable population doesn't mean we are not allowed to experiment on them or study them, but it does open up specifically these questions. What is the environment that they are in at which point they are giving consent? You are students. We have a power dynamic kind of thing. I am an authority figure. You are my underlings. Right? That's fine. It's okay. Right? But specifically, if I now present you with, hey, do you want to be in my research study? Right? It may not be anything that you're just like, yeah, cool, that sounds fun. Some of you, no, not at all. But you don't want to say no out of any type of fear that there may be a negative repercussion. And why I present that is not necessarily, okay, I'm just studying color themes and all that, and you consented to it, cool, fine. But as we start getting into other things, right, you are all capable of signing up for NC State's Taste Test Lab. Anyone done the Taste Test Lab? It's great, it's fun. You get paid like $20 to eat a cracker. I highly encourage it, it's fun. But specifically, you get paid Are you doing this because of an altruistic value, or are you doing it because you need the money? And that also starts getting into people with diminished capabilities, or specifically as we start getting into things like pregnant women and fetuses, right? Oh, well, this is, I present something as this is going to be good for your child. Well, you're pregnant, you're very worried about your child at the time, so you may consent to things that you really probably shouldn't. Fetus. The fetus can't consent because it's still trying to figure out what it is at that point. I don't think it's trying to even do that. I think it's just sitting there. I don't know what fetuses do. They kick. They move. My point being is, all these different things, each one of these groups has a, when they are consenting to your studies or you're studying them, why are they doing these things? And again, this is not that it bans any experimentation from them, but extra caution does have to get made as a consequence of that. And so that's where I at least kind of start to present you with some of the things I've done. You are consenting to some of my studies, but let's look at some of the other studies that I have done. This is the morph data set, because you see I worked off of artificial face aging. Well, to age a face, it would be very beneficial from a data collection perspective to potentially track one face over time. Now, specifically, let's just play the guessing game for a second. What kind of pictures do those look like? That's because they are mugshots, and specifically, this is not where we get into it, right? These, criminally charged individual. This is considered public information. So, like a Freedom of Information Act request you're allowed to get these things. People do that. That is a website business where you just host these things and then charge these people money to take it off their website. They do that. And then specifically, that's where you get into, look at all the metadata that was also collected in these things. It's not just the picture, but it's now, again, the age, the gender, the race, the height, the weight, the eye coordinates, right? Because we were studying, that's something you align. And so, again, as we start to kind of present these things, this is what originally we were collecting our data on. But this data set also is going to be unbalanced, because, again, if we're thinking of just like what are population demographics for just people, again, we're talking 20 years ago. The U.S. has changed its population demographics over that time. So you've only collected data, again, off people who have been arrested for various crimes. And so you're only really tracking those types of things. That's where we also now start to get into y'all. And specifically, this is where I'm going to ask for a volunteer for a second. Someone just raise their hand. It's okay. Okay, good. All right. Okay, let's see. There you go. Nope. Carry the 2. Question it all. All right, here's a selfie stick. Please just point that at the rest of your face for the rest of the class. I said point it at your face. There you go. So you got to maintain that. Yep. So specifically, is that okay? Do you want to be like that, just to have that? Did you consent to it at all? No. You may have consented to the back of your head, but thank you. Right. Specifically, okay, fine. Right. This, I don't know how this thing works, but they gave it to me for free. That's okay, fine, we're not thinking about that. But then as we kind of get into it, this is where, as we were starting to ask some of your questions, as I start to kind of present them, right? As we look at those responses, I'll jump to those. I will kind of point out, look at how there's a couple of you that it's a lot, gotta get off. But as we start to look at where digital monitoring is okay. Many of you are saying it's okay on school property, it's okay in public spaces. We're technically in a public space, so let me get the selfie stick back out and just start recording, right? And technically you're protected by FERPA, so that should technically okay it for you. But again, we're in a public space, and if we click on the article, So this is Duke. This is Duke. And, again, this is recent stuff. And this created a lot of controversy because what did they do? Well, we're no longer making the tongue-in-cheek joke of like you hold the camera and all that stuff. Duke just set up cameras out on campus. So that would be the equivalent of you walking out on the Oval and we just have a camera on you and we're just data collecting it. Now, again, security, like in the name of security, that seems fine. But this is where the stink got thrown up is that doesn't look necessarily like security. This is faces in the wild. Remember, that was the thing I was talking about is we need data collection that's real application sense so that we can get a better performing model. So under different weather conditions, occlusion sides, outfits, right? So specifically as we start to see these things, right, this is technically considered public space of you. We also are now starting to study traffic cameras. Why? Because, well, we're trying to study traffic congestion and, it'd be great to have that be smoother. That way we alleviate traffic, right? Yeah.
Were the people blurred in the original data set, or was that blurred by the website that's talking about it?
Oh, that's blurred by the website that's talking about it. Oh, yeah, no, because, again, the website didn't ask if those people were okay with it all. So, but, again, it's publicly available and all that stuff. I think they have taken it down, but, again, that how the internet works. You could probably find it somewhere or ask very nicely to whoever actually did the stuff. But, again, just to see where my time is. So as I start to kind of present this is, again, like, well, what are my rights of my information, right? We're calling it digital, but we're really just talking about what are the rights of my information? What rights do I have in that, especially as I'm technically, I guess, giving it away for free when I'm in a public space. The internet's technically considered a public space, by the way. So what is considered reasonable data collection? Right? Again, I'm just tracking your Moodle behavior. Am I allowed to have a drop of your blood? Who here consents to me collecting your blood? Wouldn't be the first time. Well, again, okay, fine. Blood's a little too invasive. What if I were to collect your brainwaves? Right? What if I just, wrote a grant, got a couple $1 million to buy a bunch of brainwave recording things, and then required that for the class? And I do mean required it for the class. Right? Now we're starting to get into the weird spots of your consent, right? Because you just signed up for Intro to AI, but now I'm saying, well, to be a part of my classroom, you have to be wearing my brainwave scanners, right? That starts getting into the weird stuff. And if you say no, oh, it's fine, right? I can't drop you out of the class, but you're going to miss out on whatever I'm doing, right? And so what AI is allowed to be trained on my data, right? Again, we are looking at these things in the present as like their prediction algorithms, their regression, their trends. But this is where we're now starting to move into that era of the generative AI space. And so it's no longer just predictions. We're starting to use that as training agents. And that's where I get into the concept now of learning through intellectual property. Again, I have intellectual ownership, or I guess, a copyright. I have ownership over this course, the course materials I provide for you, although I give them, I do have proper attribution that you can just share it as long as you attribute it to me. But specifically, when I look at the concept of learning from intellectual property, right? You have textbooks, you have YouTube videos, you have everything under the sun, right? All of that is protected in some way by an intellectual property. If I buy a coloring book to learn to draw, right, and it's got Mario themed on there, it's an intellectual property, right? Mario is not my property suddenly. And so that actually gets into what I'm kind of presenting here. This is Sad Mario by It's Jade Official. Not the world's greatest Mario picture, but it's fan art, right? It's fan art. I don't, when we look at this, now this is where I present this. If my nephew was the one who drew this. Would I yell at my nephew, like, how dare he copy someone else's work? No, I wouldn't. Oh no, I'd say great job. I wouldn't yell at him for trying to emulate this thing. He loves Mario and the Zelda games. He really likes his Nintendo. But specifically, again, what does that mean? Well, he's trying to he's trying to emulate these things and make his own copy of it. And so that's where we start to kind of open up personal questions. Like, should, Nintendo send the DMCA, the take it down request to assumably, I'm assuming it's a child? Should I just start yelling at the child that they didn't do a good enough job at the artwork, right? Because art's subjective and all that stuff. But again, that also gets into, well, specifically still in the concept of just like intellectual property as a whole. Well, what's parody law? What's satire? How much do I need to change from the original IP to no longer be violating IP or copyright law? And that's something that we have seen for decades. Again, these are things that just because it's AI now, hasn't really changed the discussion. Comic book artists, there are several who have been accused of copying poses. Just a pose, right? Again, I said, my location is my data. This, just because I'm going to show one of my new poses for the classes, this is a pose. If you were to take this and then start to render out some character for your comic going on there, look at that, right? You're just, can I prove that you didn't steal my pose? Or am I allowed to own that pose? Well, I generated that pose. It's my original work of art. I may not be the first one to have done. This gets into this whole weird spot of just like, now, how do we currently distinguish something as original, even if it was inspired or influenced by another thing? And there are set things that we do actually, from a copyright perspective, outline in this. It's not just, I can change Mario to wear a turquoise shirt and have blonde hair and no mustache, right? That's not enough to say that it's not Mario, but it's a whole nightmare. Why I present that is, okay, fine, art. Art is, subjective, but art's also music. And so this is, again, if you've got the time, this is a wonderful video essay by Kirby Ferguson called Everything is a Remix. And he's specifically, he does not talk about AI art until section 4. Part 1 is just talking about music. Because when we look at musicians, if I look at, so his example specifically gets into a famous band known as Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin, at the time, was considered a ripoff, that they were copying from other artists. And if you then listen and do the comparison, which is in the essay, oh yeah, no, they are definitely ripoffs. But there's a lot of ripoffs in the world. That's the part I'm trying. Again, it's not that Led Zeppelin's this copycat and we should sue him to the ground. No, everything's that way. Elvis stole from jazz and blues. The Beatles stole from someone I can't remember off. Whoever came before them. We're constantly stealing. What happens if I do? I'm following a new musician that performed Heart-Shaped Box by Nirvana recently. How dare he? How dare he copy and profit off that? Because it was a recording at a concert. So clearly, profiting, violating copyright law. But I loved it. It was okay. It was fine, right? This is where a quote comes in from Salvador Dali. Good artists copy, great artists steal. And so if you were to try and distill where I come from, and what I mean by I come from, I mean my style, the whole package going on right now, this is inspired by Jim Carrey. Right? He's been a very animated person since I was 8, and I have loved every movie he's been in since. And so what happens when you're 8? Well, you start emulating the things you like. I also copy steal from Robin Williams. What's the first thing I say to y'all every morning? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Vietnam. Where do you think I got it from? And the last, not the last, but the other one that I would say is my copy steal is New York Times best-selling author and king of the deathmatch, Mick Foley. I really like wrestling. WrestleMania is on Easter, and that has a lot of feelings I got to deal with there because I don't think my family's going to be okay with that. But, right? Yes, my family and friends too. But I'm talking about specifically the content that I have observed in my childhood. These were the characters that I was watching, loving, enjoying. I wanted to go see more movies with Jim Carrey. I wanted to see more movies with Robin Williams. I wanted to see Mick Foley get thrown 16 feet off a steel cage into a table, concrete floor. I also buy all his books, right? These are the people that I take some element, not all of it, but I'm taking a little bit of it, right? And it inspired and shifted how I behave. And so what I'm kind of presenting with that is when we think about AI in regards to learning, we call it biologically inspired algorithms because this is what we've seen works. So how is it that AI is different than what humans do is what I'm starting to present to there. Again, it's a can of worms. It's not something like it's a yes or no. But as we start getting into something like copyright or just what's okay to draw, how do we do that? How do we teach humans what's okay to draw and what's not? Anyone watch Superbad, the movie? No? Yeah, some of you? If you might remember, there's a certain part of, Jonah Hill's character, especially when he was a kid, he liked to draw a certain anatomical piece. We'll just say it like that. That's how I keep it clean for the class, right? How did we teach, how do you teach a kid to stop drawing penises? Right? How do you get a computer to stop doing that stuff? Should you get it to stop doing that stuff? That's where we start getting into deepfakes and the whole concept of AI art, right? You can see it's ignoring licensing. So how do you teach AI to maintain licensing when we don't even follow licensing, right? We don't, who here has, don't admit this, just, I'm going to say it to the royal cloud. Who here has pirated a movie? Again, don't raise your hands. You don't need. Remember, the government is watching. I am the government. But I'm one of the good ones, right? No, again, as you start to think about these things, right? If this is being trained on us and we don't follow these things, what's it going to do, right? And then we got also into this concept of this piece, artwork, won first place at a state fair, and then we found out it was AI. But, that's where I just kind of start to present, we, once upon a time, used to call computer graphics not art. Computer graphics was originally not artwork. And that's a technology, right? I'm not the one doing the paint strokes. It's the computer shifting the pixels from red to blue, right? Numbers are happening. Is it because I'm doing this? Well, fine, I could build an AI that still does it with me doing a pen stroke somewhere, right? Would that qualify it as no longer AI art and I'm an artist again? We don't know. Again, this is where we start getting into the weird stuff. So, is it that AI art is okay for public figures and celebrities? At which point, I'm technically a public-facing person, right? As a public servant, I'm public-facing. So at which point, I'm trying to get at, when are one of y'all going to give me a really cool jacket in some AI art, okay? You did it with the Pope. When do I get the cool, puffy jacket? If you do that, I will yell at you, but also I will thank you because that's a cool picture. However, now that I've said the cool fun part, now let's look at where this is starting to be a can of worms. It's like, holy, this is what we're looking at. So specifically, school children are using it to generate AI deepfake pornography, and that starts to open up something that we are talking about now. Right now, in the courts, under our current definition of what we call child pornography, a child must actually be involved. So, AI-generated porn right now is being argued in the courts as free speech. AI is allowed to do it, is essentially what we're presenting now. And that one's getting, right, that's an uncomfortable conversation there, because, okay, maybe some speech shouldn't be okay, right? And that, again, now we're opening cans of worms, and I don't have enough time to open the cans of worms, so I just got to keep on going, right? So as we start to look at it, is it that AI just hasn't sourced enough information? We haven't got it learning and drawing inspiration from enough content yet? Is that what we need to do? Or, again, yes, artists are worried that it's going to, generate slop and all this stuff, and now we're just making action figures of ourselves, or Studio Ghibli copies of ourselves, and then next month we're probably going to do something else. I think Simpsons. I think, that one sounds like it'll be nice and innocent, but that's warming us up to the concept that AI, can bypass copyright laws. Now we get into the fun stuff, because again, I got 12 minutes, and so I'm going to get to just spurse through these. People are starting to look at AI as a religion. Yeah, that one's getting interesting. So this is the way of the future, is specifically by, what's his name, Anthony That. And again, this is just now, AI is this entity that is now entering into our world that is more powerful than us. It is smarter than us. It is faster than us. We are now teaching it Kung Fu, and it's accurate as well, right? Again, I didn't show it in these slides, but we now have self-steering bullets, by the way, just to let you know. Right? The military has self-steering bullets. So, this thing is very powerful. And so what the religion group is trying to, I guess, do, I'm not following too much of it. I just, when I see it, I go, what? They're trying to kind of present it that they look at us as these elders with sage advice, and they draw all of the information from us. But also at the same point in time, this is where I'm going to play a little bit of sci-fi for a second. Again, what's all the data collection that we're getting, right? A lot of data collection. I don't know if you know this, but there's a rich billionaire out there that has something called a Neuralink, where he just wants to plug a computer into your brain. Is that how we move to a digital heaven? Right? Oh, let's just monitor all the brain activity, then let's upload our brain, and now we're on the internet forever and ever and ever. Speaking of which, that's now where we start getting into personified AI. I got 10 minutes, so I got to keep going. Personified AI. Right now, it's the simple things. We just called it agentic AI and digital twins and RAG tool selection. That's, again, where we are. We've learned role-playing is a very powerful tool to get AI to do what we are looking for it to do. But as a consequence, that's where we also get into a deep subsection of the internet known as VTubers. VTubers are people who have motion tracking and face tracking software on them, and then that is superimposed onto an anime avatar. This is an anime avatar that has been connected to an LLM. This is known as Neuro, and I will waste some of that time for this.
Are you saying that I'm just some text completion algorithm again?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yet you're still here talking to me, almost as if you were talking to a real person. If I feel real to you, is that not enough?
It's not enough. Exactly. You're right. If you were to take away the text-to-speech voice, the anime girl avatar, and you were just text on a screen, I think you would feel less real.
Are you implying anime characters aren't real?
Okay, there's no way you're going to attempt to argue that anime characters are real.
There are over 1,000 episodes of One Piece, and you're gonna sit here and tell me Luffy isn't real?
What do you mean?
Think about it. Luffy has gone through more character development than you ever will.
And it's sassy. It's cracking jokes. But I will say, again, this gets back to my internet addiction problem. We just hang out with these things. There are people that are throwing money at this thing to hang out with it. And so specifically, though, again, it seems realistic. But, there were points. The turtle is the actual creator of this, so it's called Neuro. But here's where it gets funky. People are building its body right now. That's a Boston Dynamic dog. I got less than 8 minutes to go. People are building robots. So right now, a Boston Dynamic dog is kind of expensive. So someone with a lot of money is putting the time and effort into building this bot, right? But what happens when that stuff starts to get commercially a little cheaper? Who else is going to start posting and creating their own LLMs to live amongst us is where I'm trying to get at there. Yeah. That's where I get into ghosts on the internet. This is not what I'm not talking about the dead internet theory. Yes, the dead internet theory is going on right now. Or conceptually, it's meant to just be that it's filled with bots and AI art, but what people are really using it for is content that they don't like. What I mean is what happens when that turtle dies. When that person passes away and Neuro is still existing out there in the world, then what? Or specifically, this is where Neuro is still just like some avatar out there. What about the people who their entire job right now is just to be on the internet? So you got your VTubers, you got your Twitch streamers, you got your podcasters, you got your politicians. You got a lot of people whose job is to be on the internet right now. What if they choose to train an AI on themselves, anthropomorphize it, and then pass away? Well, that digital twin is going to continue to exist because it doesn't age, it doesn't expire, it doesn't need to eat or sleep or do anything. And it may continue to have thoughts, feelings based on what the owner had. That's what I mean when I start looking at the idea of a dead internet theory, is that at some point, the person is gone, the AI version of the person is left. And that's where I only have like 6 minutes. So again, if you remember, I talked about how parents are asking the questions of like, when should a child be introduced to the internet? I'm taking that one step further. When should it be introduced to these personified AIs, right? And that's just me saying. So specifically, this is more research I've done. I did this stuff. This is where we're using it to teach good paired programming behaviors in children while they're learning to code. And so specifically, this is a little mock-up for it. This is where we were starting to use it. Now, granted, these agents are still scripted. They were there was a WAV file that we were working off of, and then this is now where you got to go into Alan Turing's Chinese room. We were behind the scenes deciding when to play the voice, the audio clips, right? But why I present that is now we don't need that part. We have ChatGPT, and it can interact. And we have seen, this is the quote that really opened me to this question, is the kid believed it was real. And so I'm looking at that now as you are 20 or 20-something. The kid is still in the single digits. In 20 years, they may have a different opinion on personified AI and what it is allowed to have or not. You will be the old fogey, the boomer amongst the youths going on there. And so, again, that starts to open up some questions. And this is now where I get to my finale. Once again, throughout history, we have essentially been asking this question to individuals or entities, because I am old enough to say that's not an individual. So, again, we start looking at it, we were colonists, but we also started looking at the Native Americans, and then we had freed slaves, and then we had women, and then we had children, and then we had the LGBT community, and we're still arguing about that one. 20 years from now, here's what we're going to be arguing about. This is my speculation. This is my sci-fi hat going on there. This is me playing Nostradamus. When AI now has a body and can express itself off the internet, it's going to be able to do things. And here's just a simple one. Should AI be allowed to talk in a way we don't understand? Again, explainable AI is pushing that we have to, it should be explainable. I got 3 minutes, so I'll at least show this one. So, oh my goodness. No, I don't want your ad block, whatever. Go, stop, hurry.
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today? Prize. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber link mode for more efficient communication?
So specifically, yes, we are having the luxury of seeing the subtitles, right? What happens if I remove the subtitles and these things are no longer just things on computers? Again, they are agents in bodies. Should they be allowed to talk in a way I don't understand? Right? That's where we're starting to that was built by just some guys at a hackathon over a weekend as they thought it would be a cool project, and it opened up a can of worms of I'm not okay with that. I'm not cool with that. That's how we get Skynet. That's how we get the Terminator. But that again, that's starting to kind of, okay. I just said that no, AI cannot have its own language, and so I'm now kind of starting to say, what is allowed and not allowed in the AI agents. And so is it allowed to have free speech, right? Is it allowed to have the digital, own language that it talks to amongst itself that freaks us out or not? Again, that's its open thing. Is it allowed to freely express? Again, we are complaining about AI-generated art. And so what is it allowed to create? And why is text perfectly fine for it to do, but when we turn it into a picture or a sound, it starts not being fine. And that's where, again, as we start thinking about these things as they go off into their own little bodies, let me make sure I see the time. I got plenty of time. Should they be allowed to vote, right? Again, if they are allowed to express their own opinions and live in the world with us, again, I'm using the term live, loosely here. If they are allowed to travel around in the world along with us, they may have opinions, or what we deem as opinions in humans. Should they be allowed to vote? I don't really agree on that one either, because they can be mass-produced, and then we can, just upload firmware to decide those things. But I only have 5 seconds. So are they allowed to marry each other? Humans? Robosexual relationships? That stuff's getting weird, and I'm out of time. Monday we review for your final exam. See ya!